Hey everyone, Cahlen here, and today we have the Acequia watering. So basically there is a community watering system of basically a big flow of water which is controlled and built a long time ago, which flows between people's properties across an entire community of people. Pretty large. And so people basically control whether the water comes to them by putting little boards in the way of a water at a certain point to block it from going further down and then diverting it onto their property. So basically you have to have a schedule of when that all happens, so that, because if someone way down the way is just doing it all the time, then no one all the way down is ever going to get it right. So you have to coordinate these types of things. And so there's even a person, like a head person in the community, who's like designated to the person who controls that schedule and deals with all the politics. And the politics can get kind of intense, actually. Like, I think a couple years ago someone pulled a gun on someone over like water stuff. It's like, hey, we need that, and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, that type of stuff. And then other people are like, well, other people don't care as much, and they'll just take as much as they can get. So you can see how disputes like that could arise. So anyways, today is the day that we're scheduled to do it. So basically I'm going over there to put the boards in and then let all the water flow into the property. And basically that's what we're going to see today. But first we're going to look at the spiral garden getting a deep watering more manually, local. So we just got a hose basically. And it's going crazy, guys. So basically I just put the hose in 3 different spots and let it flood. This was the first spot, and it flows to about the back. And then I put it right here, and it flows both ways to the back and then also this way until there. And then if I put it, so this is where the second one is, and then I put it in the middle at the post basically. So anyways, let's go to the Acequia. Gotta go back to my apricot tree that I live in to get my wizard staff right here and my wizard's hat. And well, I guess I already had that, but anyways, now we're going to the Acequia. Charlie says I'm definitely coming. Shadow says me too. They see the wizard staff, they hear it tapping on the ground, and they know it's walk time. Yeah, Shadow. Yeah, we're going. They're like, hurry up, walk faster. I'm coming. Charlie got distracted. Shadow, no, he's focused. We're getting out of here, guys. We're breaking out. Yeah, we're breaking out. Here we go. Go, Charlie, go. There they go. Freedom. So now I have to walk down a county road. Fairways. To get to the place. And we're coming on the Acequia. It's the water flowing down. Water going up. It's a lot of water. It's pretty deep. And now I walk barefoot through a field of cacti, but I'm pretty confident I won't get stuck. We'll see. I made it through, and I only got stuck once. I actually thought I was going to make it without it, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes you can't actually see the cactus, like the thorns actually are separated from the cactus, and it's hard to see to that level of detail, and so you can get stuck sometimes, but I'm pretty used to it. So anyways, now we're going to the part where I put the boards in to send it to our property. See, here it is, loud, because there's basically a waterfall right there. And I walk across this board, which is pretty dangerous actually. Whoa, shadow. So anyways, because basically if you fall, it's cement with a big sharp ridge that falls down like another 5 feet onto more cement, and the water's not going to cushion you. So be careful. Okay, I made it across. And these boards are what I'm going to put in there, and also this black plasticky thing to kind of seal between the boards so that the water will fill up and flow through this way instead and go to the property that I'm on. So I didn't bring my tripod, so I'm going to perform this death-defying feat of putting these boards in there while on this rickety board. You won't get to see all that, but if you're watching this video, I'm sure I survived. So cool. Okay, we got 2 boards in. You can see why I need to put the plastic on. Here's the flow of over the boards, but there's another flow coming out down here, which is from between the boards, and so we actually lose a lot of water. So anyways, it's flowing up. Look at it, it's gone really far already. I gotta hurry and get back. Nice views on the way back home. So there you can see it flowing onto the property through that little tunnel there. Heading into the garden. And then it diverts here to, I think they call it the upper garden, that goes to the lower garden, something like that. And also there's another path that we could open up there that goes to basically the tree that I live under. So usually we don't get enough water to get to that point. Also, it does flood the lawn a little bit. Here's one of the flows. It fills up this pond here. Flows under the pear tree. Lots of pears this year. Into the garden through the fence. You can see it goes on that way. So basically this is going to be filling that whole field out there. And then that other one we'll go take a look at is coming in this way to this garden. This other one flows down kind of near the cob house that Jesse built. Fills up this pond. There's cardboard here. Pond flows into the garden here. You can see there's a whole bunch more cardboard. Standing on cardboard. There's a whole cardboard pile. This is basically because in permaculture, cardboard is really useful for several different things. So that's why this is here. Yeah. There was a lizard in the water flopping around. I'm like, oh my gosh, a fish? That doesn't make any sense. But then he shot out onto the land. So flows, it'll flow here. This is the dry part. Basically, it's just going to flow in an S, back and forth, a couple more times until it reaches the end of the garden there. And a side note, Jesse and I put in 3 electroculture antennas into his garden yesterday. There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. And basically just using, what's that called? Elm. So elm is a little bit of a weed tree, but it grows pretty good things if you let them. Pretty nice and straight they can use for this. So good use for a good plant, but also a little bit troublesome. So there's the lower garden. So there's the pear tree we just saw flows in here to another pond, and then basically flows along the growing beds again in a big loop going all the way back. So you can see the water's coming farther into the garden. We're definitely getting a really good flow, and I think that's because I put an extra half of a board on. So basically there's 2 big boards, and then usually we don't put the 3rd small board on top, but the people upstream, is that right? They were blocking it too to go to their property, which is not, they're not scheduled to do that. This is a common thing. So But the flow is so good that it's basically still able to fill up their property and fill up our property at the same time, even when I put in this extra thing. So, but there's a little bit of concern. The garden here seems to be handling it really well. And there's just concern that maybe further along the pipe between the properties, being at this high of a level, may be something that will cause a problem. If it goes over the top of something, it can then erode that. So I'm just going to go do a check on the properties in between, because we're allowed to go there. Basically, anyone in this area is allowed to access that land, even if it's going through someone else's property, because it's the Acequia is public property. So anyways, I'm going to go out there and just make sure that everything's pretty good, because this is a nice, comfortable flow. Things come pretty quick. Seems to be filling up the garden quickly, which is nice. But I just have to make sure that this flow for future things is not going to cause other problems elsewhere. So I'm going to go ducking under some barbed wire fences. There's a gap in the cacti here in the fence, so I will cross here. So this is the arroyo, which is basically a river when it rains a lot. But normally it's just dry, but it can get to be a lot of water, as you can see. You can see that pipe going horizontally out there. The water is flowing across that into their property, right, the property that I'm on. So I'm just going to go up here. It looks like there is a little bit of water leaking out. You can see, so we'll go see what's going on there. Okay, I'm up near the pipe. You can see it's leaking, which I think is normal. It's also leaking on that side. And then the guy whose property I'm standing on, him and I put these sandbags in, and they held it really good before, but we didn't go up this high, so maybe this is a little bit too high. So I think I'll go pull that board off. So you can see it's pretty much reached the top. The other person upstream actually pulled out their board now, so we're getting it all. So I'm definitely going to pull this out. So it's a little bit of a fine balancing act. Lots of different factors: how much snow there was, how much it rained a few days ago and where, and whether there's a neighbor or two along the line who's taking water off schedule, that type of stuff. So usually 2 boards is enough, but I figured it wouldn't be because the neighbor was taking. But then the neighbor took theirs out. Maybe they just happened to do it at that time, or they saw me come by and were like, oops, we're still in their water. But anyways, definitely don't need that 3rd board now. So let's make sure that the garden itself isn't overflowing. So it's getting to almost the back of the garden now. Goes around there, and then it will fill up this pond eventually. So basically, this is a perfect amount of water at least as far as the garden itself is concerned. Then here in the lower garden, it's flowing down, looping around, and it's almost to the back. So we've got this thing scheduled for another 2 to 3 hours, so that's going to be perfect. So that's the Acequia. It's basically a Spanish and a thing that you would see in Spain and also in Spanish colonies in the Americas, that type of stuff. And in New Mexico, specifically the state that I'm in, it is kind of a cultural thing that's ingrained into the government itself. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not a big fan of government, but I do like the idea of a project like this, which the community respects and maintains together. Not because they're forced to, but because it's valuable to every single member, right? But it requires that all members are cooperating in order for that resource to exist. So no one's forced into it. It's just something that people came together to do voluntarily. So anyways, that's the Acequia. Well, that's all there is to it. I just have to take the boards out, but it's the same as putting them in. So anyways, I'll see you later.